Welcome to the Happy Psychic Podcast with me, your guiding light, Gemma Lonsdale. You're listening to our special podcast series, Inspirational, Stories from Inspirational People. Sometimes in life we cross paths with people who have an amazing story to tell and a light that shines so bright that they use it to inspire others. With this podcast series, I will share with you those stories so you too can feel inspired. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Psychic Podcast. I am your host, your guiding light, Gemma Lonsdale, and this is our first episode in the series Inspirational, which is going to be a collection of truly inspirational stories from just ordinary people who have come through trauma. And today we are actually joined by Nikki Rutledge, and Nikki has had a very colourful childhood, I would say. She obviously lived with her parents, and there were issues of abuse that, have really transformed her life. She grew up, went into an abusive, an emotionally abusive relationship, and she has really come out the other end. Now has a very fulfilling marriage with her husband, successful business, and has really embraced her spirituality and done the healing work. So I'm absolutely delighted to have her on the show today, and really looking forward to being able to share her story with you. Hi Nikki, thank you very much for joining, and it's really good to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you have obviously the reason that I actually came across you in the first instance was your Instagram page for at Moonlight and Mindfulness, and you guys have lovers of magic, the moon, crystals, nature, and it was all of your videos and your crystals and things like that you were posting on Instagram that really caught my eye.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but things haven't always been like that for you, isn't that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually recently became a certified meditation practitioner and a crystal energy healer. I've been into this realm my entire life, really. Since I was a little girl, I loved magic, and I loved anything holistic healing. I always just had a different point of view than most kids my age. And it's really funny because that actually I learned everything from my mom in that regard, but my mom is actually estranged now. So
okay. So in terms of your childhood, because I know whenever we had an initial conversation, you talked to me a little bit about what your childhood was like for you and some of the things that you had experienced.
Yeah, so my mom suffered from bipolar, and in addition to that, she struggled with addiction. And I felt throughout my childhood, it's funny, my husband and I always talk about the differences in our childhood, and my memories are just so sort of dark. I just recall my mom, her addictions essentially took over. I mean, she was in and out of rehab, and a lot of times she would take me to places that she probably shouldn't be taking me to sort of support her habit. And I was so young at the time, and my two sisters were older. So at this point in time, they, were living their own lives. My other sister was moved out of the house. And so it really was just, I felt like I grew up in this really strange environment, and my parents' relationship became very toxic, mainly because of her habit. And so it was sort of a whirlwind. I felt like every night, every weekend, the cops were essentially at our house because they would fight. And it just wasn't a home that ever felt safe or stable, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So how did you cope with that? Because that is a lot for anybody to deal with, let alone somebody that is more inexperienced and in their younger years.
Yeah. So I was a dancer my whole life. I loved dance. I honestly think my life would have turned out a lot differently if I didn't have that to lean on. I used to, tend to be really upset in my room, but when it was time to go to dance practice and I had my friend or someone that danced with me picking me up, I had to pull myself together and get out of the house. And in addition to that, I really spent a lot of time with friends and extended family. I was, we were really close to our grandparents growing up, so there was that. But yeah, I mean, mainly it was dance. I remember being a kid, and I would we had like this really big basement, and I would always like make up dances in the basement, just be down there for hours to sort of just flush things out. And I also have been a writer my whole life, so writing was really helpful too.
Ah, well, I'll touch on the dance first because I am so curious to know what sort of dance did you do? Did you do a specific type or?
Oh yeah, so I did a little bit of everything. I was hip hop and jazz for a majority. I danced
Uh-huh.
competitively with hip hop, but then as I got older, I loved and I wish I got into it earlier, but I was into like contemporary, almost like a slower movement of dance. But yeah, I danced up until I want to say I was put in a dance when I was really young, like 7 or so, and then I danced up until I could. Like I was dancing a few years ago in like flash mobs with my former dance teacher. So yeah, I did just about everything in that regard.
That's really good. The only reason that I sort of caught on to that or wanted to come back to that was whenever we think of like a lot of the holistic stuff, dance is usually one of those things that when we think of like like the shamans and things like that, they all would have used dance as part of their ritual. And I wonder how much of an impact that had on your life because it seems like it could have had or it looks like it had a really positive one, but obviously from an energy point of view, like dance and movement is one of those things that's really good for moving like the negative energy out of our body. But did you realize that at the time, or what's your thoughts on it now looking back
It's
in
so
hindsight?
funny. Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that because I actually didn't realize that until about a month ago. I was in this workshop with these other spiritual folks, and they all talked about dancing. And I was like, I couldn't wait till it was my turn to speak because we were on a Zoom. And I just was dying to tell them that I danced my whole life because I never met so many folks that also loved dancing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? I'm like, I don't know how all these people love dancing. But then I realized, I'm like, oh my God, when I was young, it was probably just the energy movement. I was
Mm-hmm.
like moving my energy so that it wasn't really like festering as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah.
just it's one of those things that like I always recommend people do. I have a like I do a lot of life coaching and I do individuals and I do groups. And it's one of those things that people think, oh no, I'm not a dancer. And I'm not a dancer. Like I did do dance classes when I was little, but I have two left feet. But that does not stop me.
Yeah.
Like whenever there's something on the radio or I have some music on that I like, I really go for it. It's like,
Yeah.
dance like nobody's watching. And I do
Exactly.
feel so much better. And it is like an instant mood, it's an instant mood booster
Yeah.
whenever you really like get down and, go for it.
Yeah,
Oh.
I scare my cat sometimes because I dance in our like little apartment, and he's like, "What are you doing?" He like looks at me so strangely.
Well, sometimes I pick my cat up and I dance with him. So,
Yeah. Oh, he must love that. Yeah.
oh, dearie me. So,
Yeah.
what about because you mentioned obviously that you got into the holistic stuff actually originally through your mum,
Mm-hmm.
but with her difficulties that she experienced, how much did she really embrace the holistic side of
Yes,
life?
so I don't think with her it was holistic. I think she more of was in like the witchy realm, like more of
Right.
the magic realm. She would take me to Salem every other weekend and tell me that it was for fun, but I truly think she was like a secret like closet witch. I feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having this discussion a lot more often lately the more I think back about my childhood and the things we were doing. I mean, she gave me my first tarot deck when I was like 9.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just funny looking back, like all the candles that we had in the house, and there were angels everywhere and butterflies, like all these things that are so in my realm now, like in my world, that I wish she embraced more because I wonder if that stopped at a point and maybe if she kept going with that, maybe that would have made her, I don't know, better or a different person or just lighter
Yeah.
energy.
So you've obviously come through all of that as a child and a younger teen, I'm guessing. And did your parents stay together?
So they stayed together a lot longer than they should have. Actually stayed together until I was in, I think, like my second year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
They stayed together through a lot of toxicity and a lot of negative energy. I think it was that thing where you like think you're staying together for your children when really their children wanted them to get divorced. Like it
Yeah.
was a very backwards thing for me. Like I talked to a lot of people that went through their parents getting divorced, and it was like a heartbreak for them. And for us, we were honestly pushing for it because we were like, you two are going to end up killing each other. I mean, you need to separate. Like, it got just so crazy at a point. And so it wasn't until, I was like about halfway through high school, and I think they separated, and then they got divorced and all that. And I ended up living with my dad. And then shortly after, I tried to maintain a relationship with my mom, but it did not go well.
And because that, when you're in your second year of high school, that's quite an important stage as well in your development, because that's when you're really starting to form your own personal opinions and beliefs on what an adult relationship should really look like for you personally. How do you think that the effect of your parents' separation impacted you?
So I think, and this is strange, but I think it brought my sisters and I closer during that
Mm-hmm.
time. We had to lean on each other a bit. And I also believe it made me stronger. I think I had to rely on myself for a lot in this life, like more so than most folks. I think I had to navigate, like I was also a first generation college student. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do with my future. And looking back, it's like, I think if I had the parents that were like supportive and gave that guidance, I would have probably become something else, to be honest with you. Not to say that I truly believe everything happens for a reason and I love my life right now, but I do say that openly. And my husband and I often joke about it because I always say maybe I would have been like a detective or like all these different interests that I have. And I just feel, maybe I would have continued dancing like as a career or what have you. I would have done something, but I was so lost at that time. As much as it made me strong, I will admit that it made me very lost. I felt like I had no idea what I wanted to do with my future because that was what was looming at that time. And my parents were so wrapped up in their stuff that, you know what I mean? Like my stuff almost took a back seat and I had to just kind of figure it out on my own.
Yeah, I imagine that must have been really hard. I think like if I compare it to myself, my my journey up until now, there's been periods like whenever I've been in my 30s where I have been really lost. And I just try and think to myself, oh my gosh, like for my daughter, like she's 7 now, but as she gets older, when she's in her teenage years, what advice can I give to her to make sure that she never has that feeling? And I think it can be really difficult because when we look back in hindsight at our younger selves, it's like we want to sort of like embrace them almost and just say it's okay, don't worry. But it is difficult to learn how to like cope with everything. So obviously you were feeling obviously pretty lost with that. What did you actually go on to do at college in the
Yeah, so
end?
I went to a college nearby
Mm-hmm.
because, to be honest, it sounds strange, but like I didn't know how many options are actually out there for me. I had no idea. I just sort of picked the one that most people from my town were going to because it was 20 minutes up the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there and I got a few good scholarships. I was also in theater arts, so I got a scholarship through that. So that was a great feeling for me. And then I got into college. I went to the University of Massachusetts Lowell here in the US, and I was undeclared for a while. I had no idea what to do. And I had this amazing advisor. I adored her. She told me that I should be an English major because I loved writing. So I realized, I'm like, you know what? This little childhood thing that got me through so much, I maybe could do something with this. So I became an English major with a minor in psychology. And for a while I was stuck because I was almost, I still do think about it. Like I probably should have been a therapist, like, or some type of psychological position. So I think, minoring psychology was great at the time, but yeah, I ended up doing that. I actually like started a sports club in college too, because I had a love for sports and I was actually one of the very few females that are in that field at the time. And yeah, I moved on to I worked in a sports radio station over here for a long time before doing what I do now. And then I moved on to higher education.
Mm-hmm. And what part did crystals play in your life up until that point, and any of the holistic stuff? Did you practice with anything or magic or anything like that?
Oh yeah. So it's funny. So growing up, I always was into this stuff. I had crystals my whole life. I loved them. I mean, again, I don't know if I so much practiced with them as much as just admired them. But I always had this connection to like nature growing up, and just that metaphysical realm. And like I said, a lot of visits to Salem. But I lost touch with it, to be honest with you. Throughout high school, my group of friends weren't really into that stuff. And I was like, okay, neither am I. I mean, I'm in high school. It was in the background, but it wasn't really anything I embraced at that time, and more so into college. But my husband and I, we were planning our wedding back in, 2018 and 2019. I looked at him and I'm like, I need help. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, I was struggling because when you're getting married, it's sort of thrown in your face what kind of family you have, your family dynamics. You have to remember, like, there was no mother of the bride. I didn't have a very close relationship with my oldest sister, so there was a lot of stress there. And it just was a whirlwind for me of, I see these brides that get like pampered, and, it's all about them and it's their day. I didn't have that. I really didn't. And it was something that I still, when I think about it, it kind of hurts my heart, because that was one time in my life where it should have been about me. And
Mm-hmm.
sadly, it was not. So I looked at my husband. I said, would you care if I made an altar and got back into magic for myself, because I think it could be therapeutic? And he said, absolutely. How do I join? And we sort of just, I made myself, we bought a bookcase from Target and I flipped it on its side. And from there, I got so into it, and then I really embraced it. And yeah, it's been that way ever since.
Oh, it's like I just think it's like so amazing. Whenever I picked, because I think I was probably not as into it as what you were when you were younger. I think I always have had an interest in it, and I can remember having like a deck of tarot cards and a pendulum. But I never really took it anywhere, and no one around me was into that, especially in the home. And it wasn't until I was older that I then started to get back into tarot and things like that. So yeah, it must be like a turning point in our lives. I think I was really searching for something as well. So I can really, really resonate with that when you just need to have something.
Yeah, it's just
Um,
another form of spirituality. Like,
yeah.
people, I always say that, like, you go to church, or you believe in a certain religion or whatever it may be, and it's another version of that. It's something to believe in and something to hold on to.
Hmm. So the one thing that we haven't touched on yet was the emotionally abusive relationship that you found yourself in as well, which has had a big impact on your life.
Yeah,
So
so I think my what I want to stress here is the importance of, almost like a karmic wheel. I've come to believe that if you don't solve certain issues in your life, or certain, past events that are sort of like lingering, like not doing that shadow work for yourself, those things tend to come back. It's that concept of like, if you surround yourself with negative people, you're going to end up with a lot of negative energy, like things breaking and things going wrong. It's a lot about your mindset and how you handle those things. And so, what my whole point of this is, when I was younger, I think I never got over the stuff that my mom did to me. I never really accepted it. I sort of always fought it. And therefore, the universe landed me in this relationship where, I swear to God, I was with like a version of my mom. I was with somebody that suffered from bipolar, somebody who had depression, who was not the kindest to me. He meant well. He was a great person, deep down, but suffered a lot, and also ended up emotionally abusing me because of the things he was struggling with. And I truly believe that I was put with him to sort of navigate the feelings of my mom, if that makes any sense, because he was very similar to her.
mhm.
And it wasn't until I realized a few years, I think, after our relationship ended very tumultuously, I said to myself, to the universe, I deserve better. Stop giving me these people that want to tear me apart. Like, I deserve someone who's going to be kind and caring like me and thoughtful. And it was very strange, because lo and behold, like months later, I reconnected with my now husband that I actually met the first, like, a week before college began. And we've reconnected all these years later, and he is literally basically everything I asked the universe for, which I know that sounds strange.
No, that doesn't sound strange at all. That sounds absolutely amazing. I'm like, I was just sitting smiling when you said that. I could feel the love hearts popping up out of the top of my head. It's you know what I think. Similar to you, like it's like that karmic wheel, and the universe will keep throwing stuff at you. And it sounds like that lesson was about boundaries and self love. Because
Yeah.
I always find that until I have learned the lesson, until we all have learned the lesson, the universe will keep throwing us into situations where we're going to be presented with exactly the same thing again and again and again. So
Yeah.
that point, whenever you were like, you know what, I deserve better, you were
Yeah.
like showing your boundaries, you were putting, you were laying your marker down in the sand that, right, I love myself, I am worth more than this.
Yeah.
And that'll have been like the turning point, or it sounds like it definitely was the turning point for
Yeah.
you.
And for people that struggle with believing in that, I will say that's not the only time in my life that happened. After our wedding, I had a best friend who was a childhood best friend. And I was very blinded by how much I cared for her. And I think a lot of people around me knew that she was not very good to me in a lot of ways. But I was very blinded because she was my childhood best friend. So I would do anything for her. And after our wedding, our friendship ended also very tumultuously. And when she left my life, which I felt like was like a force from a higher being, it was a very strange thing. She was like pulled from my life. Um, and I was devastated because she chose to leave. She was like, I want to end this friendship. And I was devastated. And it was funny because, as the months passed, all my other friends were like, Nikki, she was horrible to you. What were you thinking? And they were like, the universe did you a favor. And she left my life, and it was crazy because all these new people came into my life. Like all my friends now are not the friends I had then. And I think it's almost like when you shift your mindset and your attitude, it's like I swear something happens where you like attract that energy back to you. And the people that are in my life now are so amazing and kind and thoughtful. And it's been quite an experience.
It's honestly, it's so amazing though, isn't it? Like I get so excited about this stuff because whenever we do set our boundaries and we tell the universe what we want and what we're willing to put up with and what we will not put up with, things completely change. Like it is unbelievable how focused on mindset it is. And I wish that everybody had the ability to experience this type of magic, because that's what it is, I think, is like the magic of the mindset, I guess. And it's, the vibrational attraction. And but I just wish that everybody could see it and see how easy it could be for them if only they were able to lay down their law and decide what kind of life they wanted to live, because we can design it ourselves and it will be, beyond our wildest dreams.
Yeah, and I will
um
say, like, it's never perfect. Like, life is not perfect ever. But it's about how you handle those difficult times and times of stress, and how you go easy on yourself or how hard you are on yourself that really is going to, make or break those moments, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, I completely agree. So what about manifestation? Do you do any sort of manifestation work specifically, or
I have in the past. I when I think it was like a few years ago, my husband took me to a tarot reader before I got like really into this stuff. Or we started our small business where I now do that, but he took me to one for fun. And she was like, "Whoa, you two are manifesting so much." And I thought that it was like a bad thing. I'm like, "Oh no, are we asking for too much?" But so I pumped the brakes a little bit. But I have, yes, I have done a bit of manifestation work for myself, mainly. Again, like I said, the new people that have come into my life, I sort of was welcoming in that I created some space for them to come in. And I also really changed career paths. I feel like I sort of manifested this life that I've always wanted to live, and I never thought it was possible, and I still don't know if it is, but it's all new to me. So yeah, I mean, in terms of manifesting, I feel like a lot of things did come to fruition for me, but I'm still kind of feeling it out
and
a little bit.
whenever you talk about like your career change, was that a conscious change that you made, or how did that come about?
So when the pandemic hit, my husband and I started our small business, which is Moonlight and Mindfulness. And that's where I became certified in meditation, practicing, and crystal healing. And I think we didn't know what was going to come of it. So we sort of just started small. I had my job here at Boston University. I was the assistant director for marketing. And I liked my job, but what was happening was I'm writing a book as well. So I felt like every day I was being like ripped apart because it was like our small business, my real job, and then writing my book. And it was just way too much. Like it was just and then all of a sudden, like after Christmas, my husband and I realized that our small business was kind of taking off. Like it was, I think, more so than we expected it to, which is a great, great thing, not even a problem, but just a great thing to be happening. But I sort of spent a few months really contemplating if I wanted to keep my job at BU or, which kind of became like soul sucking at a point because I wasn't doing what my heart wanted me to be doing. And I knew, that pull, I sat with it for a good month or two, maybe even longer than that. And I just said to my husband, would you be okay with me making some changes? And we went over our budget, we figured everything out. And when we knew that it was possible, although a huge risk, I just went for it. Like I ripped it like a band-aid. I was like, I'm just doing it. I don't know. And I just took this blind leap and it's been very great. It's only been about like 3 months, but so far, so good.
That's so amazing. You know what that is though? Whenever you're following your heart, that's like your soul calling to you to tell you this is not right for you. You know, whenever you were like saying about, contemplating leaving
Yeah.
your role at the university, that was literally your soul crying out that you're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be doing something else. And you probably find this as well, but I often find for myself personally and for other people that I speak to, whenever we're following our calling or we're following our heart or our soul's call, our life just seems to fall into place. Like the successes with your business and the following that you're getting, and it's probably because you're on the right path now.
Yeah. And it was funny. I felt like, for so long, I couldn't tell if it was my, my heart calling or my soul, or if it was just me being, almost like, what's the word, being like overly optimistic. And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't differentiate those things. And that's where I was struggling because I didn't want to have false hope. And, God forbid I quit my job at BU and for whatever reason, things didn't work out. And my husband's like, Nikki, stop thinking that way. Like, just, we know what we have is great. Like what we sell, what we offer. Why not just give it a try? And I said to him, I set like a little deadline. I said, if things aren't working out, I will get a different job. So I was trying to be, I'm also a Capricorn, so I'm extremely practical. And for us Capricorns, if anyone listening is a Capricorn, they will know that is the scariest thing when it comes to like taking a leap of faith because we are so realistic. Like everything needs to be, like very structured and outlined. And it was like I almost had to like let go of the reins and just let, things play out. And that was so unlike me, especially when there was so many reasons to stay at my job. So I had to fight against those logical reasons and really just, like you said, like follow my heart and just really lean into what was calling to me.
Because that's a difficult thing to overcome though, is that fear. Because whenever we start thinking of things from a place of fear and we think of like, oh, all the things that could go wrong,
Yeah.
that like restricts us from making a decision. Whereas if we're thinking about the things that could go right, it kind of opens up a lot more opportunities for us. But how did you overcome that? Because I suppose there's two elements to it actually. So there's part of it you were talking about there, how you were struggling to really tune in to know whether it was a soul calling that you were having. And then it was overcoming that fear of how things, might turn out should they go wrong.
Yeah.
But how did you come to the decision, I guess, that it was going to be the right thing to do? Like, what sort of things did you do to help yourself make that decision? Because a lot of people really struggle with that.
Yeah.
And then how did you overcome the fears? I suppose there's two questions in there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Yeah. So it is like it's a lot of loaded questions too, because there's so many different things that came to my mind when you asked that. So first and foremost, a lot of meditating, a lot of sitting with those feelings and trying to navigate what was right for me. In addition to that, a lot of, again, I read tarot cards. So a lot of tarot card pullings, a lot of trying to decipher things from a magical standpoint, as strange as that may sound to some. But just trying to see if the universe could just give me some messages. And then from a realistic standpoint, I'd made a lot of lists, positives and negatives. And I had a lot of talks with my partner. Like my husband and I sat and would really discuss the ins and outs, and just, again, with me being so, like, I'm such like a type A, like Capricorn personality, I said to him, I need like something to hold on to, so I know that if for some reason things don't work out, we have stuff to fall back on, or we're going to be okay. So having those open discussions with him was very helpful. I think my breaking point was when, and again, there's signs from the universe everywhere. So after Christmas, or during Christmas, we got this huge rush of orders, and I was still at my job at BU. And my friend came over, and I was sitting on the floor, bawling my eyes out. I didn't eat in like, I want to say I went like almost 2 days without eating food. And my hair was a mess. I don't even know if I showered. She looked at me and was like, Nikki, I think it's time to quit your job. Because it just became so cumbersome to the point where I was physically and mentally drained, and I wasn't even I wasn't even able to be creative anymore. Like, I love designing my graphics for my Instagram, and like that fell by the wayside. And I'm like, who am I? Like, I'm not even being creative. I'm not even doing things I love. Like, I wasn't even, I usually run every day. Like, I haven't even been like running outside because I'm so exhausted. And that's when I looked at my husband and I said, I think it's time.
So, from your friend saying that to you, how long did it actually take you to hand your notice in and resign from your post?
I think another month. I still went back and forth. I had a lot of good cries. I will say crying is helpful when you're doing it to like release. A lot of talks with my sister that I'm close with, so that was helpful. And again, I think the thing is, sometimes I'll try to explain as the best way I can. When you know the answer, you don't want to hear someone else's opinion on it. So I'll give you an example. So my dad came over for my birthday, and I was breaking the news to him that I was leaving BU. He said every reason why I should stay, and it like made me sick to my stomach, not because I thought he was obviously right. Yeah, those are a million great reasons I should stay, but because my heart was like, none of that matters. That doesn't matter. Yeah, you're right. I should stay. Steady paycheck, it's a job, the list goes on, but it didn't matter. And when you feel that like in your bones, like that, none of that, yes, that's fine and true, but when you know in your heart that that doesn't even matter at that point, that's when I was like, I know I just made the right decision.
I think that's like such a good thing that you've just touched on, because I think a lot of people seem to do this. They ask someone because they're almost seeking validation, but they don't want to hear what the other person has to say, because the other person will give their opinion and they're like, well, no, you're not right. Yeah, it's good, but it's not the right choice, you know.
Yeah.
But that's always a sign. And I think it's trying to recognize that the reason that you don't want to hear those opinions is because you already know the answer and you've already made the decision, even if it's on a higher level of conscious that the decision has been made. It's like you know the decision already, or you know what the right thing is for you to do, but you just want somebody else to validate it for you with the same information. Because if your husband had said to you, oh well, no, you should quit, because rather than you should stay, you would have been like, yeah, you know what, yeah, you're right, because it had validated what you were thinking yourself.
Yep.
And then what about with meditation? Because obviously you're a meditation practitioner, so you're very, very into meditation yourself, and it can be a practice that can be quite challenging, I think, for people to really get into. But I find meditation really, really powerful. But how does it benefit you
Yeah.
personally? Yeah.
So funny story. So I suffer, and I probably should have mentioned this before. I suffer from generalized anxiety as well as social anxiety. So my mind is a chatterbox. Like, my mind does not know how to slow down or, know how to relax properly. And that's where it's funny, because I always get people who know me well, I can't believe you meditate being such an anxious person. Now, the thing is, they don't say that to be mean. They say it because I think people think anxiety means, or meditation, sorry, means shutting your mind off. That's not actually the case. So for me personally, meditation is a great time for me to know and like cue to my mind that it's time for a break. So whether that's laying still and listening to a guided meditation, or laying still and letting my mind sort of just wander, I like both of those forms of meditation, and there's no wrong or right way to meditate. It's really just sitting in a quiet space and letting yourself be with those thoughts. And again, the goal is to sort of figure out how to, maybe push those thoughts aside or not engage with them during meditation, but they are going to pop up. And I think for me, learning that was a game changer, because I think we're like almost programmed to think that meditation means shutting your mind off. That's impossible. You can't shut your mind off. That's not, you'd be dead. There'd be a problem there. You need, your thoughts are going to come and go, but it's a matter of how you interact with them, and also your goal of your meditation. So for me, I set different intentions each time I meditate, whether it's to relax or whether it's to, figure out an answer to a difficult question, like when I was trying to quit my job, or whatever it may be. If I want to explore something, or, I've done like, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but my friend led this beautiful like Arcturian healing meditation where we sort of explored being in like a Merkaba type of figure, almost like sacred geometry, and just seeing where your mind went there. And it was just so crazy, the symbols and the things that pop up. So just exploring the different types of meditation has been such a great thing for me.
That's amazing. I think like I'm not a meditation practitioner, but I do meditate a lot, and I'm very comfortable with meditation. But I wouldn't have the same knowledge as what you do on the different types of meditation and things like that that are available. But I find it so incredibly helpful to help me answer some of the questions that I need to get. And I think as well, I have suffered from periods of anxiety in my life. So I can relate to how challenging it can be and how much of a negative impact it can have on your, like, even your ability to make decisions.
Yeah.
So massively well done to you for being able to get to the point that you're at, because I know it is really difficult. Like it's a proper challenge to actually manage. But I think meditation, and it sounds like you have had the same experience yourself, where it really just does help you like get to the answers that you need to actually get.
Yeah, and it can help with those feelings of overwhelm that a lot of us that struggle with anxiety do tend to get. I get
Mm-hmm.
very overwhelmed very easily, especially we were just recently super busy for Mother's Day, which is so great. And I'm very grateful for the busyness, but it also gets to a point where, things fall by the wayside. Like we haven't, been really like, I wanted to clean our apartment and like do things like that, like maintaining a home while running two small businesses, because my husband also owns a barber shop. So we've been very burnt out, and having the meditation at night is like a very great way to just calm down and like come back into the space around you and sort of feel into your body, and like almost like a self check-in. Like it's like, okay, how are we doing? Yes, things are crazy right now, but and also being expressing gratitude towards yourself for taking whatever it is, 10, 15, 20 minutes out of your day to just sit down, which a lot of us, that's really hard to do nowadays.
Yeah. Well, what advice would you give to somebody who has come through similar challenges to you and who really wants to make a difference in their life, and turn their lives around for the better?
I would say start within. Um, a lot of everything that happens around you is going to be a reflection of what's going on within you. So if you, don't do the healing, and then it's funny, in my life, I have a few people that I see as so opposite. I see the people that have done the healing and the people that have not. And it's remarkable the difference there. If you don't do the healing, that's when those inner demons sort of come out to play. The jealousy, the anger, resentment, lashing out at people, and sort of losing people in your life that, may have been very great to you. And then, so I feel my point is, what I'm saying is, I think it all starts within doing that inner work, doing some shadow work, exploring how you're feeling, journaling with those feelings, doing journal prompts, maybe joining support groups. Like I have so many groups online that are so great. Like I have a spiritual women's group that's in my area. Again, we're all online, but I always say to my husband, I feel like I have a virtual army behind me because I've never met these people, but I feel like they have my back. Like if I need advice, I go on that group. It's on Facebook, and my Instagram, and really just putting in the work for yourself, understanding what you deserve in this life and what you are capable of. And my biggest thing that I tell people is just don't give up on yourself. Like life's going to get dark and dreary. It's gonna be a bumpy ride, but just don't give up, because you never will find out what's on the other side of that.
Mm,
And
that
it's
is,
very, life's such a long and winding road, so just don't give up on yourself that easily.
yeah, that's amazing advice. I think I'll actually take some of that advice myself today.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
obviously you've got your store, you've got Moonlight and Mindfulness now, which seems to be doing really, really well. So what sort of things do you guys sell?
Yeah, so our main thing is our hand poured soy wax crystal candles,
Mm.
that my hubby literally pours right in our kitchen. His poor his poor little schedule. He was up at 5 a.m. this morning pouring candles. Um, but yeah, so we sort of team up. I'm more of like I put the orders together, and I do all the marketing and all that good stuff. But he does make our candles. We also do organic homemade tea. All our recipes for our tea are actually, we make them in batches, and we have like friends taste test, and then we came back with the blends that we have available right now. We also have crystal jewelry. We have crystal gift sets that have been a huge seller for this Mother's Day coming up. And yeah, a lot of other crystal items, like cool, like we have like labradorite hearts and like angel aura clusters. So yeah, just it's really been like a great experience, like combining my two loves, because I enjoy teaching people and helping, because I also lead workshops as well. I'm like the moon woman for this platform called the Quantum Shift. So that's been really nice. So just combining all our loves into one big thing that we can offer to folks has just been a very, very rewarding experience.
Yeah, that's good. And you just have like an immense following on Instagram as well already. So it looks like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I love, oh my goodness. If anyone listening, like interact with me on Instagram. I love hearing from folks. I always post about my cat, and I feel like he's like famous now. Like people will reach out to me and be like, how's Leo doing? Like my cat. I'm like, wait, what? Like what world is this where I'm like able to reach out to all these people from across the world, and they're like in love with my cat? Like this is just the funniest thing ever.
Oh, that's amazing. It's
Yeah.
so funny though, because like cats are really healing as well.
I
Like they're such a
know.
healing animal. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. My cat T, like because I had a mastectomy like 6 weeks ago, I think it was.
My
And
goodness.
my cat just wanted to sit on my knee constantly. Like, and I was like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
that's so amazing, because he obviously knew that I like had the operation or I had surgery, or he
yeah.
obviously knew that I needed healing, because he usually doesn't want to talk to me. So so I thought that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they
Um,
always know.
they definitely do. They definitely do.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for today. It's been absolutely great talking and finding out a little bit more about your journey and the success
Yeah.
that you've made, I think, at the minute. I just think it's so inspirational when people are going through challenges. It's so good to be able to listen to somebody else and how they have come out the other end of them.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives people hope that there
Yeah.
is better there for them.
Yeah, and
And
I will say, like on my Instagram, I am very like candid and open about that. So like anyone that, like I said, I'm always here to chat. I think I'm very open and honest with what I went through, because that's healing for me in itself, and because I know there are other people out there that are like me. Although, again, growing up, I didn't know that. I kind of thought I was the only one. And as you get older, you realize that there are many, many people going through similar. So yeah, I just hope people know that they're never really alone in those struggles. So
Oh, that's so good. Well, in terms of your social media, so if people want to find you on Instagram, you're at Moonlight and Mindfulness on
Yep.
Instagram, and it's the and with the AND, not the
Yep.
symbol. And then Facebook is Moonlight and Mindfulness, the
Yep.
same again. And then you guys have a website as well, which is moonlightmindfulness.com. No and, so it's just
Yep. That's us.
moonlightmindfulness.com. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for today, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you could leave some feedback or rate the show, it would be a big help for other potential listeners. And don't forget to follow or subscribe so you receive a notification when I've added a new episode. You can also follow me on both Facebook and Instagram at Gemma Lonsdale Guru, and the website is guidinglight.guru.